Hey everybody, how's it going? We're going to give just a second for everybody to connect, just in case anybody is a little bit late. So this class is a part 2 class. Last week on Monday, I started a full illustration painting, and today we're going to work on the character part. Last week was the background, and then this is going to be more the character. So if you are here for part 2, welcome. If this is your first class, hi, we do this every week, and every month is a different theme. So we keep doing classes that are based on the same theme, and May was Mix It Up. So we're trying different mediums that we don't normally work with and exploring those for a little bit. And Scott just posted the YouTube link if you want to check out any of the previous classes that you didn't get a chance to. That is available for you guys. So I am going to be working on this painting for today. I did most of the background in class last time and then went back over it and just added some splotches with more and more undiluted color, I guess is what the word would be. So now we have a nice silhouette of white paper of our mermaid character, which is what I'm going to start painting today. And then I have the first reference that I made on my computer is this one. So these are roughly the colors that I'm going to use. When you print off of an image that you did on the computer, sometimes the colors can go a little wonky if you have like a low quality printer. So they're going to be slightly different, but I am sticking to like, you know, purple, blue, purple for the main colors, the main gist of it. So the first thing I'm going to do is pick out the main paints that I'm going to be using for this piece. So I need to refill my blues and things like that. So I have 2 blues in my like paint collection. I have an ultramarine blue, which is a very dark blue, and that's really good for purples. I'm going to be using that. And then I have a cobalt blue, which is a warmer kind of blue. You can have warm colors and cool colors, but they're still technically blue. So I'm going to have that as well. And I'm going to get more yellow. Just so I have the general colors that I'm going to use for this project. And I may add some later. I'll put some white on here too. Let's do a little dot of white. I'm going to try to use the white of the paper as much as possible for my lighter shades, but every once in a while you do need to use the white. Now what I talked about last time, I have this liquid mask, and we talked about it a little bit last week, but what it is, it's a liquid that you can paint on. It's like a glue. And when it dries, you can paint over that area with watercolor and it won't affect the paper. And then you just scrape it off and you have white paper underneath. I usually only use it for very specific places. So today I'm going to use it on the eye, just because I want that eye to stay as white of the paper as possible. To be like the white of the eye. So I'm going to start, that's the first thing I'm going to do, is put a little bit of mask to the eyeball. So this is what it looks like. It's very goopy. I'm just going to tap it on there. I only want to cover the eye part. And that's it. And I'm going to let that dry. So it's a very tiny area. But I know if I just went ahead and started painting with it, the watercolor would infect the eyeball, and I want it to stay white. Okay. So in general, just like last time, I'm going to start with really watered down paints and then build up from there, because I want to control the values, so how dark and how light these things get. So I'm going to go more watered down at first and then build up to darker colors later on. And then I also have to alternate which areas I paint, because I'm going to be painting mostly wet on dry today. So I'm not going to wet the paper first. And I want to make sure that, like, for instance, I have skin over here and tail over here. If I painted one after the other and the paint was still wet, they could mix together and I could lose those two areas. So I'm going to have to alternate and then let some of them dry first. And then I think I'm going to start with the tail. So I just have to mix up a purple. I'm just going to go over to the side. I got a lot of ultramarine blue, and I'm just moving it closer and closer to this little puddle of crimson that I have and letting them mix together. I do this even when I paint in other mediums, so like acrylic or oil, where you have one puddle of one color and another puddle of another color, and then the new color in the middle. And the reason you do that is because it's really easy if you want to, like, let's say this wasn't red enough for me, I wanted to throw more red in there. I just pull more red in to the middle and then mix it up until I get the color that I want, instead of making separate puddles. And because it's watercolor, they're going to flow and, you know, blend and mix together just on their own. So that's a nice dark purple over here. So I'm going to get it nice and watery. So I'm sort of using the water the way you would use white in other mediums, getting it lighter just because it's a thinner paint. And as I go through, I'll put thicker paint on top of it. If you mess up on watercolors, which inevitably you will mess up, one way you can fix it is just by using darker paint. Just wait for it to dry and put some thicker paint, excuse me, I meant thicker paint on top of it. Now here I also have to be very careful as I'm going around the areas that I've already painted. I'm coming right to that edge and no further. And usually the water's pretty good about staying where I put it. If it's getting a little too out of control, you can switch to a smaller brush. And then it's a little bit easier to control these puddles. So I got that whole area filled. I want it to be sort of a highlighted section in here. So I'm going to push the water closer to the edge. And of course, I'm going to go over it and get the ends a little bit darker as well. Okay, so this is all going to be the same color. So I think I can just start doing the rest of the tail too. And I'm just doing a light wash. When you cover a big area with a watered down pigment, whether it's paint or ink, a lot of times it's called a wash. I have to be careful around this hand. I'm just blocking in which areas are going to be purple. So I'm going to do a little bit of shadow over here on this side. So I'm just using a less watered down paint over here and just kind of tapping that in, letting it spread around. Okay, so I'll let that dry. And since I have a nice purple already, I'm gonna do the hair as well. Just because I already have those colors mixed up, but I'm gonna put in, on my example, it's a lot lighter. And I think a little more red. So I'm gonna drag in more of that crimson and then just mix until I get a slightly reddish purple. And then use that. Now the hair is similar. I want it darker around the head and then lighter as it gets to the tips of the hair and stuff like that. And then I think I'm going to switch to a slightly smaller brush. Just use this one. This brush just soaks up the paint. Look at that. Different brushes will react differently to watercolor sometimes. So over here through this stripe, it's more of a highlighted area. There we go. I'm gonna get just water on my brush. And then slowly drag these two puddles together so that that highlighted part will still have color in it, but it will be the lightest part of the hair. And kind of go through like that. So it already looks a little bit more like hair because we have areas that are darker and then a little bit lighter again and then darker again, sort of like stripes. So as it moves through the water, that's kind of how I think the light would be bouncing off of it. And I'm going to start with really rough, big sections. Some bubbles. And then as I work through, I'll get smaller and smaller sections. Okay, so I don't want to do her skin at this point because it's too close to areas where the paint is still wet. So I'm going to jump over to the shoe, which I want to be a very bright yellow. So I think I'll let my paint be a little bit thicker for this one. The reason I chose to do a yellow shoe with a purple, mostly purple mermaid is because they're complementary colors. So that means that they are across from each other on the color wheel and they sort of beef each other up when they're next to each other. I want this to be lighter, so I'm just taking a tissue paper and blotting up the top part of the shoe to take off a little bit of that paint and make it lighter. So if you're ever painting with your watercolor and you put something down and it's too dark, or maybe it's a mistake and it's not quite what you wanted, if it's still wet, you can come in with a tissue paper and literally just pull it off of the paper like an eraser. And then that's done. I'm not going to do the inside of the shoe yet because that's going to be darker, and I don't want a darker yellow to mix in with the pure yellow. So we're going to wait on that. Okay. So this over here is starting to dry. So I think I'm going to start on the skin. Another thing that I'm doing is I'm switching brushes when I get to a new section, just to keep them kind of separate. I'm not super good with this. I will forget, and then I'll just pick up a brush that I was using for a completely different color, just because it's handy. I get that really light. So this is a warmer blue. I like to use warmer colors on skin. So even though this is blue and it's a very warm, it's a very cool color, excuse me, blue is. If I get a warmer blue, it'll contrast with the tail and everything else as being more of a warm color. So there's a point over here where I messed up. This blue patch over here is supposed to be pink, but it's also in shadow. So I just left it. And then I'll go back later. So over here with the eye, I don't have to be super careful because I know I have that mask on it. So you can see the blue beading up. I don't have to worry about that bit. Right here as well. So I know where all my shadows are going to go. I know there's going to be a big shadow right in here on the neck. So just like with the main colors, I'm going to start with really, really general areas and then build them up and build them up, smaller and smaller bits. So that's a little too dark. Bring that up. Okay, I'm going to let that dry for now, and then we'll go back later and work on that some more. So the last major section I haven't done are these fins over here and the shadows over there. So those are going to be a pink-ish color. So for this one, I'm actually going to use a little bit of the white to help make it look more like a pink. I'm just sliding in more and more of the white paint. Until I think I've got a color I can use. And then I'm going to start where it's the most saturated. So that's over here. It's a little bit thicker of a paint than I normally have. So I can do that. And then add in some white and spread it through the rest of the fin area. So hopefully when it dries, that edge will stick out the most. Let me go. I'm checking to make sure that this is dry. It's pretty dry. So because I have a thicker paint on top of that blue spot, it totally covers up that mistake I made there. You can still see through, it looks a little more blue than the other side, but it's supposed to be in shadow, so that kind of works for me. So sometimes your little mess ups and little mistakes can actually help you out on a painting. So if you find a way to just go with it, it can help out a little bit. Okay, so there is the main breakdown for the whole mermaid. And now I just have to go in and add in details in smaller and smaller sections until the whole thing is filled in. And again, I am using this thing as a guide on my colors. So they're gonna look a little bit different, but that's what I'm looking at to sort of guide me. The hardest part of watercolors is sometimes just choosing the colors where you want to go where. All right, yeah, this is pretty dry. So as I keep working on this, do you guys have any questions, any problems that you're running into as you are painting? Either raise your hand or type them in the chat and we can get to those. If there are no questions, what are some things that you guys are working on? Does anybody want to share their project? I think I forgot to paint her pinky finger. Yes, Kat?
I have this frog I'm working on in colored pencils. Don't mind the rain.
Awesome.
The rain, it's not really raining. This is pretty much the entire 30 minutes I've been out here, all the rain that's fell on my paper.
Oh no. So you're working outside today?
Yes, because
that's excellent.
Nice and warm out here.
Uh-huh.
And I was bored of my room. Also, I have a cute turtle and I can look at the cute turtle.
Are you in is this your backyard or?
My grandparents' backyard, but
Your
yes.
grandparents' backyard. Okay, cool. Well, I love the black. Like it really makes those colors pop. The black paper. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's fun to be able to work in different areas than you normally would. I had to be really careful with this hand over here because there's so many small, tiny areas. I don't want the purple and the blue to blend together.
Painter's not looking to share, but says but says he's working on a mixed medium / collage for school.
Okay. So it's like a school assignment?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's cool. The school year is almost over. How many people are off of school in May coming up? Is anybody almost done with school? Are you guys all, June is when summer starts? 3 weeks left? Okay, cool, almost there. So when you have a puddle that's too dark, like my puddle over there was a little bit too dark, brushes are designed to suck up the water. So you can use your brush as well instead of a tissue paper to suck up that extra water. So I just sucked it up and then spread it around a little bit to blend it in with the rest of the hand. You have a test soon, Kat? Yeah, it was always like May for me was always like test season. So every class would have a big test in May. All right, I'm gonna keep working on this tail. I want there to be more of a gradient and a lighter part in the middle, which is starting to happen, but I want to beef it up a little bit more. So I'm just going to add more and more layers, thicker and thicker paint. Let's spread that out. So sometimes in watercolor, well, I should say sometimes in shadows, you want a hard edge to the shadow, and then sometimes you want a softer edge. So like over here, there's a very sharp edge here, and I just let it dry because I know that's going to be a shadow shape. So sometimes if you just leave the paint, just put it down and let it dry, you can get those hard-edged shadows, just as long as you're painting wet on dry. And then if you don't want a hard-edged shadow, all you have to do is dip your brush in water and then fuzz out those areas by painting some water over it.
I'd like to share.
Excellent. Oh, that's crazy.
It's this up this image I made.
Oh, okay. So you made it off of an image on the computer. You did a pretty good job translating it. It's a lot of the same colors. This is watercolor, Nathaniel?
Yes.
That is awesome. That turned out great. That had a lot of tiny little bits to do as well. It's tiny little areas. When you're painting in very small, tight areas like that, it's called precision painting in watercolor. Have to have precision. So the puddles don't go into each other. With these, I always feel like I rush the first couple steps because I just want to get color on there. So I know what I'm doing and what colors are going to go where. And then after that, it takes forever. I'm really slow and like, oh, I don't know, maybe this, maybe that. I will try to get as finished as I can in the next hour with this, but if not, I'll just continue after class is over. Is anybody doing anything fun over the summer that they can share? Like going to see something neat? I don't know if people are starting to travel again or not. We're doing a fun camp. I'm doing a bunch of camps this summer. So I'm really excited about doing art camps again in person. It's fun to be able to do stuff online where like anybody can see it from wherever in the world. But it's also nice to like be there in person and see people's work in person. There's some pink in here. Ooh, nice. So because this is going to be like a mermaid tail and it's going to be scaly at the end, I think what I'm going to do is just get thicker and thicker paint and just dot it on and see how that turns out. Get some scales. Spread. Okay, let's work on our face more. So because I have this pink here, I'm just mixing in the blue with the pink just to make it a little bit warmer. And then I'm going to go through my shadow areas. So one thing about, especially about doing like humans and faces, is the skin usually isn't like one shade or one color, even though I started with the washer one color. Usually around the cheeks, you know, it'll be a little warmer, a little pinker. It might have highlight areas and deep shadow areas because there's lots of little twists and turns along the face. So usually faces is where I spend a lot of time. And it's usually a lot easier if I have a reference to work off of. That's another reason I am using a piece that I already drew on the computer to kind of give myself a guide. You can also use photos and things like that. That can be a really handy guide. They're so tiny, these areas. So this is under her cheekbone right here. And don't worry, I know I put it in dark. Put it in dark and then just add some water, kind of feather it out. And blend it into the rest of the face in one direction. So that leaves a highlight over on the top of her cheek. Let's make it more crimson. Another tip for you guys is that purple makes a really good shadow color. I do this a lot when I'm working digitally. I will usually, after I have a flat color figured out for everything, I'll put another layer on top of it and set it to multiply so it's a little bit see-through. And then all of the shadow areas I will paint in a purple color. And it just makes really nice, cohesive looking shadow areas. That's what I did with the original painting. So I'm going to try to replicate that a little bit with my watercolor by using more purple in the colors, in the places where I want shadow. Especially those really deep shadows. This for her nose. Now things like that are very, very fine details, so like around the eyes, usually I do that with a pen of some kind, like a micron pen or something like that, just so I can get those fine details. And you can outline your piece with pen and then paint on top of it, or you can do the reverse. You can kind of do either. Some red. These tiny, tiny little areas. The only way I know to approach hands is by like pretending they're a mitten and just painting them all clustered together like that. And then I'll start dividing them up with tiny little strokes. Now, sometimes I think with this background here, I should got away from me, I should put a little bit more background color over there. I think the shoulder, maybe the shoulder should be up a little more like this. Even though I traced this from the previous image, the neck was looking a little too big, so. Okay, let's work on the hair. I haven't worked on the hair in a while. Painting loose hair is kind of fun because you don't really have to worry about a solid structure beneath it. You can kind of just let it go. And as long as you're keeping in mind that it's attached to the head, so as it twists and turns, it's still going to be attached to the head. You can kind of get away with, you know, whatever. Add a little bit of gray. Okay, I think the ends are a little bit too dark, so I'm just gonna tap, tap. Did anybody else want to share what they're working on? Now I get in the zone, and then class just goes by so fast. Hey, Kat.
Hi. I have more progress of my frog.
Oh, okay, so it's, oh, I love the tongue.
Thank you.
That's awesome, and all the highlights you put in, that's turned out great.
Thank you.
All right, did anybody else have a project that they wanted to share, even if it's not done? I'm going for a reddish purple, and I'm going to start painting shadows over here. Sort of tie them together. And then there's going to be more of a shadow on this side. So for this one over here, I think it should be a little bit lighter than what I have now. So I'm mixing in a bunch of white And I'm going to put the white on top of it. You have to be careful using white with watercolor. Watercolor white is very transparent, right? So it's not very thick or dark. And you can use other mediums. A lot of people will use gouache white paint instead. I knew someone in college who used acrylic if they wanted white on top, you know, so it's not, you don't have to use the white that comes with your watercolor kit. If you got a watercolor kit, you know, that's not necessary. I try as much as possible to use the white of the paper for my lighter shades. All right, I still need to do the little fin dividers over here. So I'm just toning down this yellow with some blue. Let's get some purple in there too. To get kind of a brownish yellow. And then this is going to be the shadow areas over on my shoe. Hopefully you can see the difference on the camera. I can't always tell what the camera is going to pick up and what it won't. All right, so we're coming up on the end of class. It went by so fast. Are there any other questions about watercolor before we end for today? Yes, Liliana and Heather.
We're gonna share what we've got so far.
Wow, that's beautiful. I know it's upside down, but that looks awesome.
Thank you.
Cute little scene. Oh, it's like a night sky. I like the little white specks. Oh, snow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the snow? Yeah, yeah. I like the little white specks. That's very effective.
Thank you.
That's awesome, ladies. You did great with the watercolor as well. I hope you guys that tried out watercolor continue with it, because it can take a while to get the hang of it. I'm still working on getting the hang of it, but it's really rewarding. All right, did anybody else want to share what they have so far? Hey, Tater.
Hello, this is what I got for my collage so far. I got a hand. Oh, yeah. I got.
Nice. This is the one.
I'm gonna glue on.
Oh, that's cool. The hand.
Yeah. And yeah, this is for school, so I was just gonna
Okay.
during class.
Have you been doing the collage classes with Lee?
Yeah, not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know she was doing collage as well for her medium. I don't know if she did for all 4 weeks, but I know she's doing that for her medium of choice today. All right, that is excellent. Did anybody else want to share? Okay, everybody, so we are going to wrap it up for today, but we will be back again next week with a new theme for the summer. What I'm going to do is, my challenge for myself is to fill a sketchbook this summer. So I'm just going to get a blank sketchbook and try to draw over the whole thing before school starts again at the end of the summer. So that's my goal. So if you want to do that along with me, just grab a sketchbook. It doesn't matter what size. And then we will draw and sketch together and work on our skills with that. So next month is a lot more loose because people are going to be doing different things and out of school and on vacation, stuff like that. So we're really just kind of doing whatever we feel like. I don't know if it's like a take it easy. My theme is going to be the sketchbook, is filling the sketchbook. I don't know if Ben's going to have like a more defined theme when he posts it. But it's gonna be, I know for Mike was gonna do like a theme park thing that sounds really, really cool. I'm excited about that. So be sure to check out the website for when those things get posted. We are gonna start up in June, just like normal, with a new round of classes for everybody. And then you all know the donation link is there as well. Feel free to donate if this is part of your summer and your entertainment as we all try to stay active and creative online. And that is it for me this week. Thank you, Scott, for producing as always.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.